All right, three, two, one. Hey everybody, Harry Welchel here. Today I have Viktor Jarosek, and we're going to be talking about how Viktor had his first 11 strategy sessions and brought on his first client in about 30 days. So Viktor, before we get into all that, why don't I turn it over to you? Can you just introduce yourself a bit and share a little bit about your business?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me as well. I do real estate flipping. I'm out of Gainesville, Florida, and I do a lot of real estate flipping, and I realized eventually I want to teach this stuff. I want to teach others how to do it. It was just kind of happening naturally where people were asking questions. They want to learn how I do it, learn what works, what doesn't work. So I just kind of started branching out from there. But that's pretty much it. I do two things. I flip houses, and I teach people how to flip houses.
Nice, man. So how did you get into flipping houses originally yourself?
So part of it is it's a family business, so I've been doing it for a while there. So one of the first properties my parents were working on, and they had me work an entire weekend. They gave me hey, remove this debris, or hey, take out these nails, or hey, do these simple tasks for us. And then I worked the entire weekend. They give me a $20 bill, and I'd be like, oh, this is fantastic. I'm making good money.
How old were you at the time?
I was 14 at the time. Yeah,
pretty good deal.
So got started that way. Just started doing real estate. I wanted to veer away from the family business because it just wasn't something I wanted to pursue, or at least that's how I felt at the time. So I tried a ton of stuff. I tried healthcare. I tried home services. I tried a wood flooring business. I tried online businesses. So I was all over and did a ton of things. And then just slowly eventually got back into real estate, where I was working full time and then just started doing it on the side. And then saw success. And I was like, oh, shoot, I actually like doing this. I want to do it. There's good money in it. And then you can build it as a lifestyle business too, which is a huge bonus. So just evolved that way, and now I do it full time. So it was a gradual, slow process that I got back into it. I'm very happy with it. I don't really want to change. I don't want to do anything else. With my other businesses in the past, it was okay, as soon as I'm done with this, as soon as I hit the exit or hit the next milestone, I can do this other business, level up, do something else. But with real estate, it's just no, let's just do more deals, bigger deals, better deals, and let's just keep doing this.
That's awesome, man. So it almost sounds like you had that early experience with your folks, and then you put it down. You came back. When you came back to it, did you have to learn a lot yourself, new, or did you already have a ton of it from that first round learning with your parents?
It was pretty minimal from the first round, honestly, because all the stuff I knew was just repairs based, how to hold a hammer, how to take out nails. So it was really very rudimentary level repair stuff. Mm-hmm. So I basically started from scratch in terms of learning. It was helpful to have that background, but a lot of the stuff, how to find a deal, how to get money, how to calculate and estimate repairs, a lot of that stuff I just didn't know, and I had to figure out.
Was part of the fun having to learn all that stuff, or did you just or was that not as fun for you? Was that a challenge?
It was a challenge. I don't know if I'd say fun. Now it's fun. Looking back, it was okay, cool. But when you're in it and things are going wrong, you're oh no, what have I done? What am I doing? And that's just the learning process. That's the learning curve. So it's no hard feelings on my part there. A lot of trial and error, and that's why I like to do this as well, because I know students hey, I can help you avoid a ton of trial and error because I've been there. I've made every single mistake in the book twice. So that's what it was. So it was a lot of learning from the base and a lot of trial and error. I started to build a network of people I can call on, and then I had family members who had success with it, so that was helpful. But it really felt like I just built it up from scratch.
So with all that being said, this year, how many houses or deals have you done personally so far?
Yeah, so I think so far I'm at 12 or 13 for this year, and then the goal for the end of the year is about 20. So we're on track for 20 flips this year. And the goal next year is 30 flips. So it's been a process, but just really improving. It's once it clicks, then it clicks, and it goes okay, let's repeat, rinse and repeat.
And do you have a team or anybody that helps you, or is it just you that's doing all this on your own?
No, I have a team. No, you can't. I couldn't handle it all on my own. So there's no way. So we always have a team. Like we have like contractors. My son have partners. We have like a title company we work with, inspector, that sort of stuff. So it's a lot of folks that put into it.
Make it happen.
That make it happen, exactly.
That's super cool. So how long have you been coaching other people?
I started a while back in terms of coaching other people because I started my initial course stuff on Udemy, but I wasn't doing real estate stuff back then. Someone told me about Udemy, and I heard about a lot of people having success.
How long have you been coaching people in real estate?
In real estate, oh, okay, about a year.
About a year.
So it hasn't been too long, yeah.
And what are like the types of people? Like, who's the ideal person? Who's the best type of person that you guys work with? There's
a couple buckets of people. Some of the people are like who are currently working full time. They have a W-2 and they want to eventually get into this full time or do this on the side. So that's one bucket, like full time people. Then there's people who currently do real estate in some way, shape, or form. Maybe they're in construction. Maybe they're a contractor. Maybe they're a realtor existing. Maybe they're a wholesaler. And because of that, they want to get into it because they see other people making money. So it's usually those two buckets is what I've been seeing. So it's those groups of folks who are my ideal client.
Okay.
Oh, and then the thing I want to layer on top of that, I like to work with folks that are just getting started. Some of the folks I've seen who are a little more advanced, they feel like, oh, I've done this before. I don't need any help. I feel like I can still like help them out and level them up and get them there quicker and faster. There's a bit of, I think arrogance is too strong of a word, but it's a bit of like, I don't need help. I can just do it.
Yep, I hear you. That makes sense. So like those folks who, there's that sweet spot for you right over the plate.
There's that sweet spot, exactly.
That makes sense. And what do you think makes you unique or different, as somebody who's mentoring and coaching other people in real estate right now?
I think there's two things really. The one thing, a lot of the folks out there, they teach it, but they don't do it. So they maybe did a deal once or twice, and they kind of hang their hat on those compliments. Yeah, and they're an expert, and they're on the stage, and they're in a suit, and they're talking about it, and like, oh, I did a deal, it's awesome, blah blah blah. But I'm like physically, actively doing it, like day to day. It's like something I'm doing. I'm still learning and getting better. And I think the other thing is like the volume, as to attach onto that one thought, just like the volume. Like if someone does 1 or 2 flips a year, that's a different beast than doing like 20. Because like that 1 or 2, there's that thought in the back of their head where it's like, oh, do they just get lucky on those 1 or 2, or do they have just a good connection or a network? So just that volume. So at this point, I don't think it's luck for me. So that's the first part. The second part, a lot of people focus, like today, the flavor of the month is wholesaling, and that's the way people can get into it. Like no money, no credit. It's super easy to get into, but everyone teaches it. Like everyone teaches it. And then I like to really focus on flipping, like buy a house, fix it up, sell it. So I focus on a slightly different niche. Everyone else focus on the wholesaling niche because it's just so much easier to sell a course. Because so much easier to sell someone if you can convince them like, oh, you don't need money, you don't need experience, you don't need anything. You can make 5, 10, 20 grand checks and you hold up a check. It's like, oh, it's so easy. Let's just do this, buy my course. Flipping, it's a little more involved, but it's better if you have money. It's not necessary, but I think those are the two things that really distinguish me. So first, I actually do it. And then second, I teach. I really like to focus on that flipping part.
Awesome, man. That makes sense. That's cool. Okay, cool. So let's go back to the beginning of our relationship. Like, what were you working on? What were you doing before we started working together?
Oh, I was doing a lot of stuff. In regards to coaching, I was just in the mindset like, oh, I'll just figure it out myself. And, oh, I'll just try a ton of stuff, and then I'll iterate from there. I purchased a lot of courses from a lot of other folks. So what got me started on the journey, so I mentioned Udemy, so I started doing courses there, but it was all random courses. It wasn't real estate related. And then a year ago, I signed up with another gentleman.
Were you doing those random courses? Like, I'm trying to like match it up with your journey in your own real estate journey. Like, were you flipping at the time and just like trying to find a side business, or was this before you got back into flipping yourself?
Before I got back into flipping, so it was like 5 years ago.
Got it.
Yeah, and then I was recommended and I wanted to start teaching this stuff for the flipping. So I signed up with a guy about a year ago. Yeah, about a year ago, and he was all right. My issue was he wasn't very responsive. So he would give me homework, I'd do it, and then I'd message him like, okay, cool, what's the next homework? And he'd ghost me for like 2 weeks or 4 weeks. And like I paid him good money, and he was just so unresponsive. And yeah.
Okay. But like let's talk about like specifically maybe the month before we were working together. Like what were you doing at the time? Like maybe I remember your pricing was really different, your style of selling was really different.
Right.
Like speak to some of that stuff.
Yeah, so after that I did some other stuff, and I was recommended, and I thought it would make sense, like do a low ticket course. So I started selling it at $97. I wanted to make it super accessible. I wanted to get a lot of people in there. My line of thought was if I lower the price, more people are going to sign up. And then I can use that I can just iterate and go up on price. So I did that. And the issue was like not as many people as I thought would sign up. So like it didn't, not risk reward, but benefit cost, like the time I put into it just didn't make sense. So I think I sold like 9 people. And that's good. Like I benefited them. But then the other thing I found out was like they weren't really bought in. They didn't really have skin in the game. Like it was so easy for them to just like buy the course, like try it out a little bit, and then just give up. But for this, and especially real estate, like it takes time to get a deal. It takes time to renovate. It takes time to sell it. So you have to be committed and persistent long term. It's not like, oh, I'll knock this out in a weekend and I'll make 30 grand. It's like, okay, you got 3-4 months of trial ahead of you or journey ahead of you. So that was the two things I found out. And what I was basically doing before, I was in Facebook groups. So it was like a hybrid of organic, where I was in these Facebook groups and I like make a post and I connect with friends, and then I'd send this blanket message to them. Hey, my name's Victor. I'm a flipper, blah, blah, blah. Join my Facebook group. And then the point was like to post content in that Facebook group, and then like, hey, I have this course, buy my course. And like I got a lot of people to sign up for the Facebook group, but not a lot of people bought the course because it was just low touch, and yeah. And then
you were trying to do it.
Yeah.
Like if I remember correctly, you weren't even getting on the phone with anybody. You were just like sending the payment link in Messenger, right?
That's pretty much it. So I sent up like a super simple 1-page sales page, basically, and it was like 3 bullet points. I'm going to help you how to get deals, how to get money, and that was pretty much it. And then it's like, here's the price, and it was like this super simple page. And that's I would just send them that link, and then I was frustrated, like, oh, why aren't these people buying? Like, it's a great price, but they just weren't really sold, and it was just kind of random. It was just spammy, so it just didn't work.
Yeah. So why do you think you got in your head that this was the right strategy? Like, was it coming from somebody, a coach or a mentor that you were working with, or did you just think to yourself like, no, this is like, I'm going to do it this way. This is a better way, and kind of ignore some of the advisors that were around you?
No, so I've tried a lot of folks. I've tried 3 or 4 people before switching over to you and just sticking with you. So this was my latest person before you. Like he was making like $250,000 a year. He was doing awesome, and this was his strategy.
Interesting.
And like I was like, oh god, this is fantastic. So I'll try it out. And then I tried to replicate it and it didn't necessarily work. And then like he was doing some other stuff, but he didn't teach that other stuff. He was doing some, yeah. So it was just, so he was recommending it slow. He was saying like, do this and you'll get this outcome. And the people in the group weren't getting that great results. Like a couple people did all right, but then it was like, oh, I made $500 this month, or I made, $1,000 this month. But with the time and effort into it, it just didn't make sense. So I was following the advice of somebody, but it was just, I don't think it was malicious on his part. Like he didn't want me to succeed, but I think for his niche, it just didn't. Maybe it worked differently. I don't know. Maybe he was just doing some secret stuff that he didn't teach. But that's where I was at before meeting you.
Were you frustrated at all, or like were you like, oh, this is if I just keep doing this another month or two, it'll catch?
I was frustrated, to say the least. It was frustrating because I was doing it for so long. And part of it was like, I wasn't making much. But the other part of it was like, I'm doing this and I know what I'm doing. Like, why can't I help people do the same thing, like in
Like
terms of flipping.
you're a legitimate expert. Like you have
Yes,
legitimate
yeah,
value to add, and you're like, why can't I convey this?
exactly. And I saw other people in real estate, and they don't have as much experience as I do, and they didn't like they're selling fluff and they're selling outdated tactics, and their stuff is much much more expensive than I could ever conceive. And like you hear these stories, and like people are just getting burned by these companies, like they're just cycling through people, but they know how to market. So, but they're selling dreams, you know. So that was just so I was frustrated for sure. My idea was I come from I studied engineering in college, so
Oh,
I was
really?
like always iterate, try A to Z. Okay, if it doesn't work, then tweak it. It's like a machine. Like if the machine input output, if you don't like the output, like what change the machine, like change the gears around and you'll change the output. So I started iterating from the just blanket, send them a spam message. I started trying to build a relationship with them. Like, hey, what are you looking to do in real estate? You know, what's holding you back? All that stuff. So I'd build a relationship. And I started seeing success there. I was like, okay, cool, this is going good. But it was the same issue. Like people wouldn't buy when I sent them the order page. So I was like, okay, what if I hop on a phone call with them and try to talk to them, get to know them, and then sell them? So I just slowly iterated. This was over the course of weeks and months. So it was just a long going process for the entire thing. So it was just like slow iteration. I had an insight like every week, and I get a little bit better. It was like 5% better every week.
Did you ever feel like in that process you're like, like this is hard, but it's not rocket science. Like I'm sure other people have done this. Like why is it taking me so much trial and error? Did you ever like think along those lines?
Yeah, exactly. What my issue was, because I knew people who were doing it. Like I know other people in real estate who were legitimate, and they were doing that. Like they were doing successful, huge months, and I was thinking like, okay, at this pace, I don't think I'll make this in a year. I don't think I'll make this in a decade. You know, following my own thing here. So I'm like, okay, I think the issue is with me and my strategy. So I'm doing something wrong. Like if everyone else is doing good around you, and you're not. It's like you and the strategy that's missing. That's the way I saw it.
That's smart. I think it's just like a lot of times it's hard for people because it's like to look inwards and look internally, be like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. Like, and I think also sometimes people struggle with they are so determined to do it and not give up. They keep doing the same thing that's not working because they think that means that they're leaning into it. They're being gritty. They're doing the work, and eventually it's going to pay off. And like that, I've seen that in my own life.
Yeah. Well, that was part of the thing I was thinking, like because he was saying, oh, you need to put 2-3 months into it, and then you'll start seeing results. I thought that was kind of silly, and I was like, with my input and output, like what if I put more time into it, or get more contacts, or add more friends? But then that wouldn't. It just didn't. It didn't scale that well. Like it was like, okay, I'll get 8 students in a month. What if I get 12 students in a month, or I only have so many hours in the day, like I can't like work harder at a certain level.
Yep. So like where did you first hear about me?
I posted in a mutual Facebook group we have, and part of my thought process at the time, I was still going through this like spam message, and my thought was, okay, well, I need social proof. I need testimonials. So I put a post in this mutual Facebook group that you and I have. I was saying like, oh, what's a good software for like collecting testimonials? I didn't really understand the strategy behind it. I was like, how do I make it easy for my students to collect a testimonial? They're just going to do a selfie video. I didn't know if they had a phone. I knew they had a phone, excuse me. I didn't know what kind of phone they had and how to do all that stuff. I want to make it easy for them. So some people responded like, here's a good software, and then someone tagged you. Like, oh, you got to talk to Harry. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I messaged you, and then we kind of went back and forth in Facebook Messenger. But that's essentially how we met. I just posted in that group, and someone tagged you, and then it evolved from there.
Cool. And so, in that initial interaction there, or maybe in our first call, like in all that, like what piqued your interest?
Well, in the Facebook Messenger, like you were just adding value, like you were giving me really good pointers just right off the bat. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I should try this and this and this. And it was like these good tweaks that I think I knew at a gut sense would make sense and work. But then I tried them out for myself, and they did work. So that piqued my interest. And then like we hopped on a call, that sounded good, and you just kept on giving me more things to think about, like, hey, you should do this and this and this and this. So that piqued my interest. And then no, that's pretty much it. Then I saw your case study stuff, like the other people who were successful, and that got my interest as well.
So I remember on our first call, like, I think I tried to get you on another call, and it took some hand wringing.
Yeah. Are you? I can share that if you want. I mean, I don't know if you're comfortable sharing it.
Yeah, I want to hear, like, I'd love to hear, now that we've been working together, like, what was your experience like? Why were you so resistant to, like, having a formal sales conversation with me at the time?
So we just hopped on the phone real quick, and then like the chat went well, and then we wanted to go to a longer call. And like I understand how this works. Like this is my first rodeo, and like I know what you want to do on that first call. Like I know the end point. I know how it ends. And I was really just so frustrated with it. And I'd never share this objection with you because I knew you'd like overcome it, or you have like a good point around it. So I was like, I'll just hide this objection. Because I'd worked with so many people. Like I tried the Udemy thing, and I tried like another 4 people. I think you were the 5th in the end. But I tried so much, and I spent so much money, and that was the thing. I spent too much money. I was gonna list it, but I think it's too much. It's like a 5-figure amount. Yeah, 5-figure amount. And like I spent so much money, I was like, okay, well he's gonna hop on another sales call with me. I don't want to spend money again for this to solve this problem. Like if I could press a button and spend money and this problem solved, boom, I'd do that. But I didn't want to go through that cycle again of excitement, trying something new. Hey, this doesn't work out like advertised, and then just going through that cycle again. So that was my concern. And on that call, I don't know if you ever try to close someone that hard, but I counted, because I always count because I'm a salesman at heart. You try to close me 6 times to get me from the quick chat to the sales call. And I'm glad you did. I'm glad I'm glad it worked out. You did mention, like, I asked you about it afterwards. You mentioned, like, I knew what I could do for you, and I just had to make a couple tweaks. So that's why you closed me so hard. But yeah, six separate occasions. And I was like, this guy's either really knows what he's doing or he really wants the sale, And I figured even if Harry's like a 50-50 shot, I'll take the bet in terms of monetary thing. But it's worked out since then for sure. We can talk about that. But that was my experience from my end on that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing that. It's like, it's always interesting to learn, because that's what I got the sense of. It's like you've just been burned a lot. Maybe it's just I don't know if burned is too strong, but you had tried a lot of things and it wasn't working, and you were rationally frustrated at the time, like, and hesitant to, follow somebody else or like get other advice and stuff.
Yeah. And part of it, before we continue, I just want to make a thought real quick. Part of it was like everyone threw me in a different direction. They're like, oh, whatever you're doing before is obviously not going to work for you, duh. And they're like, do this different thing. And I'm like, I do this different thing. And then a different coach would pop up and like, oh, that's not going to work. You got to do my thing. It was just so, I was just so tired of it. It was like 180 degrees each time, hopping in different directions. I was so sick of it.
Did you feel like as they zigzagged you around, like every time, like were you like, okay, what this person now is saying, like, makes more sense in light of the past, and like it's logical and it all checks out? Or was it just like, were you not thinking at that level and you're just like, okay, well, he's got some good results, like good social proof, like I'll give it a shot and see what he has to offer? Like
it was the former. Yeah. So it's like, oh, this makes sense. So this makes sense why it's not working. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Let me try your thing. And then their thing didn't work. So how I started with a guy, and the first guy I worked with, and he was saying like, okay, post in Facebook groups, and like he had this whole thing lined up, and it didn't work.
Yeah, we don't
like for his.
I'm happy to have you speak to that a little bit, but we don't need to get into every single.
No, I'm just saying
alleyway that you went down.
Okay, fair. Okay, the point being, like they all pushed me in different directions, and like every time we switched directions, like it made sense, it made logical and emotional sense, and they had good reasoning. And then as I got into it and I talked to other people, they said, that won't necessarily work for you. because of XYZ reason. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I was learning as I was going and getting better, but I just wasn't getting the results I wanted.
Yeah. So what do you think? Let's get into like us working together. If you think back to that last 30, 40 days, what are like, 1, 2, 3 big takeaways that you've had, working together?
Yeah, no, so good question. I think there's a definitive sales process that you have. Before I was just, I don't want to say shooting blindly or shooting from the hip, I think is the phrase, where it's just kind of random. I'd make it up on the fly every time. There's a little bit of structure, but not really. Like I know the funnel and like I know how to close a sale. Like you build rapport, and then you find a need, and you like build desire, and like you eventually ask for the close. So I understood sales, but I didn't have like a definitive, not even script, like a definitive guide to follow. I was doing the course before, and I like hop on a call with somebody, and it was a quick call, and I like answer all their questions, and at the end of it, I'd ask like, "Hey, do you want to buy my course?" And they'd say, "Oh, let me think about it. Let me talk to my wife." They never get back to me. So that's like one takeaway, like a definitive sales process that works for sure. And so that was a good thing. Second thing is the power of social proof, like those long form case study videos. That's what really warmed me up to you. Because it's so easy nowadays to like fake screenshots, like fake stats. And that's what everyone does. Like, hey, meet this person. This is how they did everything. And then they like, I'm skeptical about that, but it's so much harder to fake. You can even fake a selfie video. Like that's like you hop on Fiverr and pay somebody for that. So I'm even skeptical about that. But this long form interview where they're getting into detail and talking about their story, and like you look them up and they're real people. So what really convinced me. So that was like takeaway number 2, like these long form 20-minute, 60-minute interviews. Just how convincing it was and how people can relate to that. So that was the second thing. I think the third thing is probably like the power of a tweak, TWEAK. Like if you're doing 90% of the things right, and we've talked about this in depth, where it's sometimes binary. So you're doing 90% of the things right, but you forget 1 or 2 things or even 3 things, and it just nothing happens.
You get 0% results.
You get 0% results. But then you make those couple tweaks and you're off like a rocket. I think it was those 3 lessons. So the power of the case study, like a good sales process I can stick to. The other thing with the sales process, like a couple of my other folks, they had like sales scripts and sales processes, but it felt like kind of not scammy, but not truthful in what they were saying. Like they would kind of make something up and just use that. It's hard to explain, but
like it was like a theoretical script that they made, but they weren't actually personally using it every day or something like that.
That was part of it, yeah. So it just felt like you would use it, and like the reaction isn't what you would want. So they like kind of break rapport. They kind of distance themselves from you, at least in terms of a conversation. It's like this. I just didn't like the scammy. I like real sales, human sales, talking to people. Like, hey, can I actually help you? Okay, if I can help you, then let's move forward. I didn't like the sales hacks or like the tricks and all that stuff. Like say this phrase and they'll buy from you. I didn't like that sort of stuff.
Yep. What about pricing? Anything on pricing?
Oh, right. Yes, that's the other thing. So before I was selling the $97 courses, I wasn't getting the same buy-in. And now, of course, we can talk about it, but I signed up with one student. And I'm getting much more buy-in. They're much more committed. They're working harder. And that's helpful from my perspective. I don't want to just sell something to somebody and they never do anything with it. Or they learn 1 or 2 things. I want them to actually get their first deal. I actually want them to hit those 6 figures in terms of flipping. I want to transform their life as much as possible. So that was pretty much it. So one of the first things we talked about is raising pricing. I kind of fought you at first, but then I eventually came on board. And so in terms of pricing, I have to sell 10 times as many people, 10 times plus as many people to make it. And then that quality of student wasn't there before.
Isn't it funny how when you change it, it feels like a big psychological difference, but then when you just start saying it, you're like, oh, this sale at 10 times the price or 100 times the price, it's not necessarily that 100 times harder, or 10 times harder.
No, it's not. It's not 100 times harder, 10 times harder. And that's the good thing. That's definitely in my benefit.
Nice, man. So speak to some of the results. Like you got 11 strategy sessions in the first month. How was that process like? Had you really had that level of predictability in that process before?
Not really, no. So with you, I went from 0 to 1 essentially. So I went from never having done a strategy session to doing a strategy session. And so that was a big leap in and of itself. And then after getting that 1, it was like, okay, how do I get it consistently? So right now, my goal is like 5 strategy sessions a week, and I'm hitting that consistently and predictably. So that makes it a ton better. And then it just becomes a numbers game. Like, okay, I close a certain percentage of these strategy sessions. Oh, I didn't get one this week. Okay, next week I'll get something, or whatever, this month. But it becomes a numbers game, and then it was predictable for sure. So that made it better. So yeah, I did 11 in the first 30 days of working with you, so that was pretty good. I got three soft yeses. So what happened, I said like, hey, this is the price. Let's get started. They're like, okay, cool, I'm in. I'm like, awesome. And then somehow from there to collecting payment, I'd fumble it. Like I didn't say something right, or I missed something. And they're like, oh, let me actually think about it. And like one guy was good. Like he's like, okay, I can't do it right now. I gotta let me hop off the call, take care of payment, and then I'll hop back on. And then he hopped back on. He's like, oh, my fiance got into a car accident. And it's like, oh, I can't do this right now. So something went wrong. I don't know if that was really the case, but
they sent you a photo of the car, right?
They sent me a photo of the car, yeah. So I don't know if they had that on file or if that really happened. And then he said, hey, follow up with me in like 2 weeks. And I followed up with him, and nothing happened. So like a lot, again, bringing it back to those little tweaks, like little things that I said or didn't say that messed it up. So I got 3 soft yeses from those 11, and then I did get 1 yes. So yeah. that was good.
So it's almost like once your sales skills get even better, right? Like you might have, you might have closed 4 out of 11, which is like it's like a mid-30s% close rate, which is a pretty good close rate, once you get fully up to speed.
So I'm excited about that. And then I feel bad for the people, because I want to really hone in those sales skills and just focus on what you're doing, which is what works. And part of what I'm learning, it's not necessarily like learning sales. It's like learning your script, like learning what works for this niche. Because my real estate sales and negotiations a little bit different. It's like learning the phrases, learning the scripts, learning the tweaks, like how you set it up. And then I just legitimately feel bad for these people. Like they had a bad sales call with me, and now I can't help them, or they feel like it didn't go well. I'm sure it wasn't
bad. I'm just don't beat yourself up. It's just like maybe you didn't quite get them over the line or convey enough value to get them to pull the trigger.
Yeah, so that's the tricky part. But it's you have to learn. You have to learn somehow. So that's a part of it too.
How did it feel on a positive note? How did it feel to get that sale?
Felt good. No, it felt awesome. Felt really good. Yeah, and it just worked. It went and it clicked, and then the students doing really well, and off to the races and getting deals and all that good stuff. But it was good confirmation. Like for me, it was like, okay, I've gotten A to Z. I've done it once. Okay, let's just do it again. Let's just repeat what I did, and let's just continue at it.
Exactly. It's like once you do it with a lot of this stuff in business, it's like once you do it the first time, you're like, whoa, okay. If I can do it once, I know I can do it again. You feel like internally what were the things that had to happen to get to that outcome, and then you just do more of that.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's good. That's good confirmation. And then now it's more, not scalable is the right word. It's more not repeatable. With the pricing, it's more, I can actually do it. Like before, when I got a sale, it was $97. It was like, okay, cool. I have to do this, 20 more times for it to be worth my time. And now it's like, okay, sustainable. That's the word.
Sustainable.
Now it's more sustainable. I can actually, I can actually focus on it. And it's not, for me, it's less, I don't need the money necessarily. It's more like I can pay all my expenses. This is worth my time. I'm not at minimum wage before.
Right.
Is what it was, what the breakdown was. So it's sustainable is my point.
I like it. Yeah. And another way to think about it, it's your unit economics are much healthier.
Yeah.
Right. Every deal you're profitable on. So going back to our sales conversation, why did you decide to do business with me?
So post quick chat, when we spoke the first time, and then pre-strategy session, Our quick chat was on Wednesday, and then purposefully I set it for Monday for us to do the strategy session. I watched all your case study videos, all of them, or the ones that were
All of them?
relevant. Like you had some software ones, like specifically software. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if that's me, like SaaS company, all that stuff. It's like, yeah, that doesn't relate. So that's what sold me. That's what put me over the fence. So before we even hopped on the strategy session, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to sign up. Like I'm sold. I'm in. Um, Harry's going to take me through his, process, and it's going to be helpful. I'll learn some more, but I gotta do this because the other folks are, and I just related to some of the folks because sometimes with these courses and such, people and course instructors give like the best examples, like the best case studies, and they're just unattainable. It's like how Aaron made $1 million in their first month. And like you break down their story, and it's like, oh, they had this advantage, this advantage, this advantage, and they already started, and you break it
made
down.
950,000 the month before.
Exactly, that's part of it too. And like you hit that 30-day mark, and you're like, oh shit, I didn't make $1 million. What am I doing wrong? And so it just detracts from your own experience. So I like some of your case studies because it was just like that 0 to 1, and I was thinking like if I can just get to that 0 to 1 in X time frame. Cool. And then after that, it's 1 to 3, or whatever. It's if I can just hit that first milestone in X amount of time, then it's worth it. So I really related to that because you had students at different levels.
Nice, man. Nice. So like, was there anything in particular like that kicked you over the fence on the call, or was it like you were just totally kind of bought in, and as long as like I didn't come off like a crazy person on the call, like.
No, I think it was pretty much it. I was in. I was in for the most part. I was 99% in. I was just
looking for confirmation.
Looking for confirmation, making sure we're on the right page. So I was pretty much in.
Cool.
At that point.
So, would you recommend others work with me?
Oh yeah, of course. Like I want to. In doing this, like I want to save others that trial and error and that headache of trying to do other stuff and not being successful with it, and like spending like money, time, energy, all that stuff trying to do other stuff that it works, but it doesn't work as well, or it's not sustainable, or it's not like those other things that we've mentioned and talked about. Like for me, like I've had really good results. I'm looking to continue it, definitely. Yeah. So I'd highly recommend others work with you for sure.
Yeah, that's great. And it's like hearing your story makes me think it's like it's not just about saving money. It's not even just about saving time. It's like there's a bit of a morale element to it. Like if you keep doing it on your own and you're just like doing things that aren't working, like you can get to a point where you like give up or go do something else. And it's like that's just really sad every time that happens, Yeah.
Well, that was me like a year ago. So I was hustling for about 3-4 months at the course stuff. And then not getting results. So I don't know if I gave up, but I was like, okay, I'll just put this on the back burner. Like I'm doing these flips, I'm doing great. Okay, let's just focus on that. So I did. So I put it on the back burner, just kept on putting it off. I'll get it to it next month, and then eventually picked it up again. So I might not have picked it up again, which would have been terrible. That would have been not good at all.
Yep.
So there is that morale part of it too, where like if something doesn't work, or at the very least if you're not making progress. Like, oh, I hit milestone 1, and milestone to get a sale is number 3. So if you're not making that good progress, then you can eventually give up, and that's probably the worst thing.
Yeah. So who do you think we're especially a good fit for?
I think you're a good fit for people like me, so people who have something to teach, like something valuable to teach, or who can teach something, like they can learn something and teach it. So it's that sort of thing. I think it's people who are established.
You already had experience. Like you're a professional and you had expertise to offer, basically.
Mm-hmm. Just basically how to market and sell it was what I was looking for. But for other people, I'd recommend like people who are getting started, people who are already established and want to take it to the next level, and then people who are like me where they're starting at 0. They have something to teach, but they want to take it to, from 0 to 1. So that's who I'd highly recommend work with you. And even I'd throw in there like people who maybe they have worked with someone in the past and didn't go so well in terms of like a coach for for coaches, if you want to call it that, and then at the same time, like people who've never had a coach as well. So I'd recommend both sides of the spectrum. There's a lot of value in what you teach, above and beyond, just what others teach as well.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Cool. So why should someone listening take action right now?
So it's a good question. It's highly recommended to take action just because, like where you are now, if you start, and where you'll be 30 days if you start implementing now, is going to be a world of difference. And for me, it's paid off for sure. So that's that same mindset. Like get started now, and in 30 days you'll be surprised where you're at. And I was surprised, honestly.
Really?
It's like I'll get a couple strategy sessions, knock it out. If I get a sale, cool. But then I did better than expected. So that was good. So that's why you should take action now. I mean, if you don't take action now, the troubling part of it is you're just going to have that morale downgrade. Like time wears down on you. Like every week, every month, every year, it just wears you down. And eventually you'll just not do anything, which is the worst. Like I always tell my students, like there's 3 options in terms of moving forward. Like there's do nothing, and that's the worst because there's a reason like you're thinking about this. There's a reason you want to do this. And like if you do nothing, that reason persists. So you just kind of continue in your unhappy state, which isn't great. Second option is you do it on your own, or try to do it on your own. There's a lot of trial and error. Again, you spend a lot of time. You can spend money too. Like you can just throw money at things that don't work. And the third option, in this case, in this scenario, is like work with Harry and like save yourself that time, save yourself energy, save yourself morale, money, all that stuff, and actually get results. Get results.
And not even it's like not just save morale. It's like once you start seeing results, it's like a battery that starts charging, and you get more confident and more fired up, and then it gets easier and easier, and then once you get your client's results, getting the next client is easier. And so you get this like positive feedback loop going.
Yeah. It's that positive feedback, and then each one becomes easier. And then for me, like what's cool is in terms of student success, so as soon as one person is being successful, like, oh, this person did X and Y time frame, like it motivates all the other students. So I really like that too. So there's that aspect of it. But I like that positive feedback loop, so it feeds up on itself. So in terms of that, and like exponential functions, like you want to start as soon as possible. Like you want to start yesterday in terms of taking action, because it's going to grow exponentially. And that's how I see my growth going. It's like start now, start ASAP, because it's just going to grow, faster than you think. And I'm surprised where I'm at 30 days out, which is where we're at. And then I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, going to be even more surprised 1 year out. I'll be like, whoa, I was selling a course for $97. It's now, it's 97 million now or whatever.
I can't wait to see where you're at in 90 days.
Yeah.
Even that, like, I think you'll be surprised. I like it, man. So what is your number one piece of advice for coaches and consultants?
Number one piece of advice. Oh, that's a good question. Number one piece of advice. I think if I could talk to myself in the past, even like a year ago, I'd say like, hey, don't be stubborn. Like learn from someone who's doing it. Like don't be stubborn. Just like learn from someone who has a good track record and they can prove that it works. And then they have good logic, good cause-effect relationships for why it works. So that's my number one piece of advice. Like, get rid of your ego for a second. Do what works. Let's stick with what works. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Once you get to a certain level, once you surpass Harry in terms of like sales and all that stuff, like then you can start to tweak and talk about like, hey, maybe we can improve this and this. That's when it makes sense. But yeah, just get out of your head and take action now, and then. No, that's pretty much it. Yeah, just learn from people who are higher up than you and where you want to be.
I like it. That's good advice. That's really good advice. So, Victor, this has been fantastic, man. Love hearing your story. Again, can't wait to see what you do in the next month, in the following month. If people want to learn more about you and what you're doing, where can they find out more online?
Just look me up. If you look up my name, Viktor Juracek, then I'm like the only person with that name. So just find me. I mean, I'm happy to help. Just let me know how I can help, but that's the best way to find me.
Great. All right, man. Well, thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Harry.
Bye.